how did I get into this? How do I make noises? I don't know. I grew up making noises. I can't stop it, man. When I was growing up, I lived next to an active runway. My father was in the Air Force. So that meant every few seconds, that was me. My mom wasn't prepared for that. Why is the 6-month-old baby making noises?
To jump right in, at one point you were doing movies and TV appearances and voiceovers, commercials, and then you just kind of disappeared. And I think a lot of people thought, maybe the work dried up or, it was the Hollywood cycle, but that wasn't the case at all with you. So tell us why you took a break from Hollywood.
Well, there is a lot to unpack with that particular time. That was the 90s, 93. How do I just say this? I'll just come out and say it. I become a widower at that time, and I pretty much chosen to raise the kids. So I pretty much had walked away from the movie industry. I was still doing live and stand-up things, but I pretty much just walked away from all of it because it just wasn't. There was just no way to do that. I had to choose between my children or the business, and the answer is.
Of course, it's definitely the children. And so in stepping away from that, what were, did you ever think, okay, I'm going to go back to Hollywood eventually? Was it something that was on your heart to go back, or were you like,
Well, yes and no. I mean, one of the things that you discover after living in California for a while, you discover, working wise, you discover the rest of the planet. So I discovered, wait a minute. Thanks to great movies like Police Academy and Spaceballs with Mel Brooks and everybody else that I got a chance to work with, those things have been seen all over the world. So I had an audience I didn't even know existed. So even though I wasn't in California, I got to go to everywhere else. Because travel-wise, you're there and then you're home. You travel, come home, and that's the best that I could do at the time. Because I pretty much had to be there. So it enabled me to travel, and in doing so, I reinvented myself by meeting everyone. So thank goodness for having a round planet. So I was able to basically get out and meet people, and suddenly a second career in live entertainment, because I pretty much spent my time in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Finland, the UK, Italia, Deutschland, Austria, even Fiji. So we ended up being
Wow.
used about every place. So that enabled me to mature in other ways. Plus, people were making productions outside of California anyway. So turns out I was making potato chip commercials in Australia for Arnott Snack Foods. Turns out I was doing Pioneer Stereo in New Zealand. Turned out I was doing, I was doing other things. So my production experience continued. But thank goodness, this thing called people, called fans, called the folks that said they liked what I did, and they continued to support me.
And you have a pretty big following, I've heard, trust me.
I think.
Taking it even way back before Police Academy, before all of that.
Yeah.
How did you first learn how to mimic voices, or learn that you could, kind of do these character voices and all of that?
I didn't have a lot of friends. That's why. No, the truth is we traveled a lot because I'm from an Air Force family. So every 2 years or so, you know how that is. Every 2-3 years, you're moving, and it was really, really hard. In fact, if not downright impossible, to have any kind of relationship, any kind of friendships. There is a small handful, and I haven't heard from them, but there's a handful of folks that I do hear from, in terms of who I grew up with. It's hard. It's hard, for a little kid. So I basically created my own soundtrack, wall of sound, what you call an audio tapestry, basically. So I became my own soundtrack for my own movies. I just basically was my own character. So thank goodness, there was an outlet for that. The other kids didn't like it very much. So I found myself using some of those sounds to get away. But hey, it happens when you watch Rocky and Bullwinkle too much, when you watch too much of the Wacky Races, when you watch too much of the Monkees back when they were on the air. We're talking about 19 around there. Okay, so Yeah, you know that year, 19, something like that. We understand that year. So there was a lot going on. So I used it for myself because it was cold out there. You know, I'm in Glasgow, Montana. You know, on Air Force Base, minus 23 degrees. So you invent your own noises. So I go, okay, fine, I'm flying. Yeah, I'm flying. So fine, I'm Johnny Quest. Fine.
So
I'm watching Sanford and Son. But you big dummy, look here, Lamont. Oh, or hey, I'm Bill Stella. I'm Flip Wilson. You know, I'm watching all the people that that I grew up with. You know.
So, by the way, if you grew up in what I'm calling the TikTok era, like you would have had all the friends. You would have been.
Wow. Yeah. Can you imagine?
It's so interesting to think about that. You know, that back in the day.
TikTok. Can you imagine how much trouble that would have got? Yeah.
Like you're saying that, the kids didn't like that. I'm like, oh, if you grew up in the TikTok era, like you would be, but it's just interesting how times have changed. But, so when you decided to do AGT or to audition for AGT, what was that thought process?
Well, I thought to myself, first and foremost, the thing I noticed about AGT is you can pretty much go on there as yourself. You pretty much. I don't want to say warts and all, but let's say gold dust and warts and all. You show up as yourself. You can walk in there, with what's in your mind as opposed to what someone tried to make you think. You know what I'm saying? I keep thinking of that song by Quincy Jones and Ice-T, "Back on the Block," when they goes, he said, Quincy said, "Ice, keep doing what you're doing, man. Don't give a damn what this world doesn't understand. You let them tell you what to say, what to write. Your career will be over by tomorrow night." So I noticed that AGT lets you be you. For as good or bad as that can be, either way, no matter what the spectrum is, you got to be yourself. And if you survive or if you fail, you do it on your own 2 feet.
Yeah. And then your act is not just a bunch of sound. You're actually telling us a story and you're, kind of doing all of that. What was the inspiration for this specific AGT act for the audition?
Well, I kind of took the kitchen sink approach. Sort of, because I didn't know whether they remembered me or not. Because you have to understand, things can be brutal, in terms of entertainment or any business, when you're trying to make your way to the top or make your way back or make your way to anywhere. So I had no idea. I had no expectations. I had the expectation of starting from absolute zero. Because pretty much every person that I meet, and we're starting from the beginning, even though you've seen some things about me or whatever, we are starting from zero. And my job is to help everyone forget about the rent for an hour. So we're starting from here. So with every person, I start from the very, very beginning. So this is my first time seeing most everyone face to face. And Howie, I hadn't seen since 19 around there when we were doing stand-up, which I don't remember. If you can remember the 80s, you weren't there.
I mean, I personally wasn't there, but I still kind of remember.
Yeah, there was some stuff. There was a lot of good stuff floating around. Stone Temple Pilots. Wow. Well, okay. I kind of know who that is. I kind of know who Earth, Wind, and Fire is.
I heard that Simon came up to you after, it's not in the episode, but came up to you on the stage after and was a huge fan and,
no idea
you being there. Did you know that? No?
I had no bloody idea. I have no idea whatsoever. That was great. I mean, I have no idea. You see somebody, on a screen, and you see somebody on a TV screen, and you can't judge, how tall they are or what they are until you meet them face to face, and he was bigger than life. And I must say Sophia was wonderful, and Heidi's danke, Mike.
I know I've interviewed them all and they're all just spectacular. So I can't imagine one of them coming up to me and being like, "I'm a fan." I would be like, okay.
So how did you handle that? I'm kind of curious.
Oh, I mean, it's my job, so we have that. But for you, it's a different level because they are also fans of you. So as much as you've seen them on TV, they have like iconized you, which is amazing.
The only thing I can say is thank you. The only thing I can say is that I so appreciate that. You know, it made me feel a lot better to know that you're in a room of support, because you know you're not. I remember how we used to do the thing about how when you watch the old 1940s movies or 1950s or whatever movies, when the press show up, it's like a gaggle of geese, or it's like a pack of dogs. I expect, you know, okay, we're going to go outside. We're going to speak to the media. What was that? Oh, that was just Channel 2. You know, so I was glad to see the fact that he was a fan, the fact that they're all receptive and open. This makes a performer feel so much better. And I hope that I'm going to be able to help other performers as well, because part of the reason why I also came back was to be able to, you know, spread a little bit of knowledge and just like kind of leave a couple of gifts behind as my way of saying thank you to everybody. And hopefully the young ones will pick it up and run with it.
I hope so too. But speaking of young ones, I have to say, if I had to choose a babysitter for my non-existent kids, you would pick one because of your sound effects. What do your kids, and then especially growing up, what did they think of your, you know, your talent, your sound effects, you know?
Oh, they love it. The grandkids just stare at me. You know, I remember Hunter, the oldest grandson, when I was showing him some invisible dog noises, he came around the corner and goes, "I know that's you." Whereas Archimedes is more. Come on. Hey, can I use that as language? Don't you dare! Don't you dare! He's only 4.
Do you see any of them following in your footsteps? Is anyone taking an interest in performing?
Yeah, and I got to be careful about that because not everybody speaks the language. Hello, I'm Michael Winslow from Police Academy 1 through Infinity. And Spaceballs at Mel Brooks. And you have just been buzzed.